So I said previously that I had ordered the HP Reverb G2. It has finally arrived. There's a million unboxing videos on there, but again, everything I try to do on my channel for the most part is geared towards kind of the casual gamer in this sense. My hardware, my overclocking, some of those things may not be overall casual, but the experience of what you can get out of the box is what I want to show as a more casual gamer, since time is a premium for a lot of us. So we're not going to spend a lot of time, we're just going to cut into it, look at a few aspects of things, see what we think based on the headset reviews that I did, check on the build quality, some things like that, and then over the next couple of days I'll work on getting it set up. We'll put some actual gameplay and setup and configuration videos together as time permits, and we'll get that put out to see kind of how this thing runs. Alright, so let's go ahead and cut into this thing. Again, this came earlier today, and this is the first time I have opened it. So we're going to go through this together from start to finish. I'm surprised it didn't come in a slightly larger box or anything with any more padding on it. So we got the real basic instructions of what's going on: headset cable, breakout box, power adapter. Doesn't say much, kind of like the IKEA instructions. Then you get the actual unit itself. So we're gonna have to turn it over and dump it out. We'll set that to the side. Actually, we'll use that. Big box out of the way. So, not bad packaging. Decent lid, seems pretty sturdy. Let's go ahead and cut into it. Straightforward enough. All right. Okay. All right, sorry about that. My main camera decided it didn't want to work as a camera anymore, so I had to switch to my GoPro. So let's continue here. Inside the box, those aren't normally there. Again, I just had to kind of start over. Inside the box, you have the headset, very well packaged. You have this nice upper layer that kind of holds the headset in place, very form-fitting, and it's not really going anywhere. Comes in a decent bag to keep it clean. On the back side of that, you get the manual warranty stuff. Stick that off to the side. We'll come back to the box in just a second. Let's talk a bit about the headset here. All right, so with the headset, it's surprisingly lightweight. I was expecting a little bit more weight out of it. I think honestly, if I'm thinking of, this is a Galaxy Samsung S8, and while this is heavier, if you're looking at the two of them in your hand, it feels like the phone is heavier almost simply by size and comparison. There really isn't that much difference between the two, just because they're not having to carry quite as much weight in this with batteries and everything else, but I was expecting a little more weight from it, so I'm very surprised at how lightweight it is. When we look at the foam here, it's very soft. It feels like those old gel stress balls, which is a very nice feeling. I don't think this will fatigue or wear on your skin or forehead at all. It's probably going to be a little bit absorbent for sweat. What does surprise me is how thin it is. I'm barely pressing, and I'm able to compress the padding all the way into the hard plastic, which is a little bit surprising. I don't know if that's a negative per se, because I haven't actually put the headset on yet, but that does generate a potential concern where the faceplate may not last as long, or you may get fatigue for playing for long hours if you have this too tight. Likewise, the nose piece is rubber. It is large enough to support most faces. I would be very surprised if your nose is super wide. The inner parts flex a little more for the bridge of your nose, but they'll bump up against the lenses depending on what your IPD is set as. The rubber's not bad. It's kind of soft, but it is a little bit sticky. So if this is moving around on your nose, I could see it getting a little bit of fatigue on your nose, or maybe rubbed a little bit. Next to that, you can see there are the two mic inputs and then your IPD controls. I love the way this IPD feels. It is super, super smooth. You have such a, let me see if I can capture it, go this way. you have such a gentle way of moving it that you can get extremely minute adjustments to get it perfectly set for your eyes. And then it's not going to move off unless you actually put some force. So there is good resistance on this, but not so much that if you actually try to push it, you won't actually get it to move. So I'm very pleased with how that feels. That is one of the best feeling controls like that I have ever felt. On the sides, you have the cameras, sides and front, you have the cameras for the tracking. Now, unlike Oculus or the Index, they use infrared. The Index, of course, uses lighthouses, whereas the Oculus uses infrared inside-out tracking, or not inside-out, but tracking on the headset to pick it up. So they'll be a little more accurate. One of the main complaints that I've seen is that the accuracy of the tracking is pretty low. And that's going to be affected by a lot of things. So you've got light affecting it. If you have too bright of a, if your room is too well lit, you're going to run into problems because the cameras here won't pick up the white lights on the controllers. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out, because I typically play at night, and I think it won't be that big of a deal because I have more soft lighting, or even the glow off my monitors will be enough to display it properly. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out and how HP is going to respond with firmware updates or anything like that to improve it. Next, we have the over-the-ear, or not over-the-ear, but the earphones that kind of hang out over the ears. The rotation on it's very nice, very smooth, so it's not going to go out and move on its own very much. I do worry that because these don't detach at all, if this breaks, having no auxiliary headset jack, you're boned. While that is a trade-off to save some money, I think I would have been happy to pay the $5 to have an auxiliary earphone jack. That way, if I do break the earphones, or if for whatever reason they break, I'm not totally dead in the water and have to ship the headset back. Is it ideal to play with earbuds? No, but it's functional. What I don't like on these, see if I can get a shot of it, well, kind of difficult here. The vertical motion on it is not as smooth. You can see it's kind of jerky. It doesn't move quite as nicely as the other adjustments do. End of the world? No, but it just kind of takes away from the overall package. So this rotation is fantastic because this whole piece moves in and out. It starts farther away, and then as you turn it in, it kind of moves inward a little bit as it rotates. So I love that, but the vertical, not so much. The plastics on this feel really good. If you've had like an older Galaxy Samsung S4, S5, the plastics are much better than those older phones, but they don't feel super cheap. While they don't feel ultra premium, they don't feel like they skimped out. This is very hard plastic. It's not going to break. It's thick enough. There's no flex in it. It's very rigid, so there's no real issues with that at all. You can see it kind of grabs the heat off my thumb and some of the oil, so this will probably scratch, be susceptible to some dust and fingerprinting, but overall, I'm very pleased with the build quality. It's very solid. It's very well put together, and I don't see any issues with it. Even the rotation up and out of your way to look at is very nice and handled very well. Next, my main complaint comes on these Velcro straps. While if you're single or you play on your own, you're not going to run into a lot of situations where you have to adjust these once you get it done. However, if you are married and have kids that are going to want to play, these straps are going to be moved all the time. And while they did use very good industrial Velcro, you can see already where this strap has just been sitting on its own, how that has been worn and changed. And as soon as I took it off, you can see some of that fell off. So this strap has pulled some of that padding off that it uses to grab. So that is one of my concerns, because at some point down the road, if I'm moving this and my wife is moving this, this one's already worn out. That's the first time I've undone this side. And see this side, same thing. You can see a little bit of a pattern on it, not quite to the same extent, but if you're having to move that all the time, it's going to wear out, and that's going to hurt the longevity of the device. Same thing with the head strap. It's a lot larger, it's not as bad, but it does have the same problem. Now, if you're bald or have a shaved head, this strap, it's not bad, but I could see that catching on some of the hairs because the texture pattern on that might grab some of the hairs on your head or on the back of your head. But overall, I think with the way this is balanced, if you have the front pulled in not super tight, kind of like if you go back to my Sennheiser review where I was talking about all the different pressure points that you have to adapt and adjust for to make that headset fit just right. If you do the same type of thing with this, it's going to rest very comfortably on your head because no one point should be supporting the entire weight. Yes, you want the bulk of it on your head, but you need to offset it by what's pressing into your face and what's being pulled on the back of your head. So everything kind of needs to work together or it's going to have a bit of a issue in causing some comfort. Lastly, you have the plug-in socket deep in there, so the cable will plug in there and then it'll kind of route around the back through this cable tie and then hang off. We'll talk about the cable here in just a moment. And then you have those lenses. Again, I have never worn this headset. I just got it yesterday, pulled it out, shot the broken video, and I'm now redoing it tonight. So hopefully I'll get a chance to hook this up and see how it works tonight. But the lenses are there. They look very nice, nice and protected. Let's see what else we've got in the box. Go ahead and tuck that back in the nice package there. All right, bringing the box back over, let's talk about the controllers. So I'm only going to open one of these. Looks like a little ice cream cone. Now there were a few things that I had worried about these controllers. One, they're not super big on the handle part. And as you can tell, I don't have massive hands, but I do have larger hands. And with everything being smaller and compact, that's going to be difficult for me to hold these. Sometimes I have that issue with PlayStation controllers because the PS2, I love the controller, but it was small enough in my hand that it got very fatiguing to use for long periods of time. Same thing when I got older with the N64 controller. As I got older, the joystick really wore on the middle joint of my thumb just because my hand was so big that it went over. And as you can see when I hold this, it's almost the same thing where that joystick, it's small and it's right on that joint of my thumb instead of the padded part where it's a little easier to use. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as I get to use it. The other problem is the under trigger. My middle finger rests right there and that's a lot of pressure on it in order for my finger to use it. So as I move, this edge, it's not rough, it's not going to cut me, but it is an edge and it's going to be scratching against my finger as I move. And because there's a seam there from both the battery, the joint, and the edge where everything comes together, I can feel that texture on my hand. So as I'm moving in and playing and moving around, I can see that wearing a bit. Now maybe because I've never actually played anything, that I'm just overreacting to it. It's not a big negative. I'm just concerned that that might wear to some fatigue. And if I move my hand down, then I'm not on the controller properly. Otherwise, it does fit, I can hold it, but I can tell that in moving it, I don't feel comfortable down here because it doesn't extend past my hand or at least farther down to hold it. So my pinky, you can see I moved my pinky up just to grip it. Otherwise, my hand starts to slip off. So I feel that might be a little bit of a concern, but nothing that's going to break the end of the day. Battery compartment comes off very easy. I need to order some 1.5 volt rechargeable batteries. My current Eneloops are only 1.2 volt and that's not great on the batteries and probably won't power this thing enough. Thankfully, it did come with batteries, which is great. They're 1.5 volts, so that'll be perfect to use with this. Build quality feels fine. I have no real concerns on it. It's just, it just feels small to my hands. This thumbstick, some of these buttons, they all just feel very small. But I have no problems reaching every button. You can tell the difference between them because this is raised, but it's different from the larger button. So I don't think there's going to be any issue detecting what each button is for and what it does. It's just a little concerned about the size. If you have smaller hands, not a problem. If you do have larger hands, that may be something to consider if you are looking at buying the Reverb G2. So I will definitely report back on my experience after I actually get a chance to play something on it, because that is one of my concerns. All right, last in this to look at, let's get the box out, are the cables. So they do give you a fair amount of cables. Again, they give you the batteries. They give you a HDMI to DisplayPort adapter if you have a mini one. They give you this very nice USB-C to USB-A adapter. I'm very glad that they included this. My computer is a little older and does not have a USB-C port on it, but this is a really, really nice, solid, mostly metal adapter that is just really nice to hold. It's very sturdy, it's very strong, and I'm really glad that they included something like that. Good forethought on their end. All right, package that back up. All right, so let's get this big old chunk of stuff out. All right, so you've got your power cable to provide power into the breakout box here, which is where the cables break apart. You've got the two for your computer, display port, and USB Type-C. And then on the other end, you have that little funky adapter that will plug into the headset, and then the cable will route around the back. Now overall, this is a very nice cable. I wish it would have been more braided. Just feel it would wear better, whereas rubber will tend to erode or degrade over time. I'm not sure what this rubber is made of, but if you've used rubber radar detector cables and other things, if this cable sits out in the sun or if it is exposed to heat or just dry conditions, the rubber may erode faster and fall apart, which hurts the longevity of the device. I don't know how that's going to play out with this. That's just a minor concern. My larger concern is just the unfortunate fact that I use a triple monitor setup in surround, so because I have to take that apart and then plug in this headset, it's just going to be a bit of a hassle to go back and forth between the two, especially since I'm looking at upgrading to the new Radeon cards, and because they, I believe, only have 2 display ports and an HDMI port, that's going to be even more annoying. But anyway, neither here nor there. Overall though, I'm glad they gave everything in the box. None of it feels cheap. It all feels very nice, very well made. No real concerns with any of these parts, just trying to make sure I have cable routing well managed where I'm going to set everything up under my computer. So once I get everything kind of put together, I will do some video of this actual setup and see kind of how everything plays out, just so you can get an idea of what I'm doing with my setup and how that may or may not impact your decisions on how you set yours up. Again, this is my first VR setup. I've never done anything beyond old school Nintendo or anything outside of that. So I'm very curious to see how it's all going to play out, how it's going to work, and I am excited to dive in. I'm very pleased with how everything was packaged. I think it was well done. Everything has a very nice place to go in the box. Everything kind of stacks together very well. I love how light that headset is, and I look forward to actually getting it set up and playing with it. So I will report back once we do that, get some games played, get some things set up. I don't have a lot of VR games at the moment, so I'm not going to go nuts here, but I do want to jump in and kind of see how the experience goes. There's been a fair amount of discussion on, again, the tracking. So I've got a couple mixed games. The Humble Bundle this month gave a couple that I was looking for. So there's a shooter that's kind of like Counter-Strike. I already had Hot Shot, and there's a couple other games that I'm interested to try that does kind of mix. So when Flight Simulator 2020 releases their VR section, I'll look at that for more of the simmers. I have other games where I may just try to use this headset, like just to see how it works to pan around with the head. I'd love to try it with Star Citizen, but that game's so broken right now I don't bother anymore. But we'll see. I want to see how it plays out, what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, and if I ultimately end up deciding to keep it. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. So like I said, nothing fancy, just a typical unboxing and a little bit of a show about what's in the box and how things work. There's been a couple complaints that I've seen already from people who've received their units about the tracking quality. MRTV, I think it is, really didn't call out any issues overall with the tracking, but he's in kind of very perfect conditions. The main difference between the Reverb and a lot of the others that use tracking, they use infrared sensors, or you have the lighthouses for the best possible tracking. With the Reverb, it uses cameras to pick up the white dots on there. So if you're in very bright light or anything, that may wash out or cause problems with the cameras picking up those white dots, you may end up running into issues with tracking. So we'll see. My setup in my room is typically going to be a little darker than normal, so the lights may be, or the dots may be easier for the cameras to pick up. We'll see, but I think that's going to be the main thing I want to check out first, since that's what most people are complaining about. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.